Morning, everyone. Osisko Metals is the base metal vehicle of the Osisko Group. Most of you know us for our gold ventures, better known for finding and building Canadian Malartic, which is still Canada's biggest gold mine, operating in Abitibi. 2017, we decided to create a base metal vehicles. We're very bullish on base metals. As I told my colleagues back then, and I still believe today, gold is great, but what we really need going forward globally are more base metal development, more base metals mines. The demand for metals is ever increasing. Take into account especially infrastructure spending and, of course, decarbonization. The pressure on particularly copper, nickel, and zinc is going to be very high. Estimates from producers such as Glencore figure global production has to double in the next 30 years, which is a huge challenge for the industry, an objective that probably cannot be met, but at least we have to try to go there if we hope to reach net zero emissions. So we have two projects in Canada, friendly jurisdiction, of course. I've had my own share of ventures overseas in the US and so on, and I've decided now to retrench back to our country. The fact of the matter is Canada is still one of the best places in the world to actually get a permit to start mining. It's becoming increasingly difficult, even across the border, to the point where it's almost paralyzing. In today's market, junior developers simply cannot afford to wait 10 years to get a mining permit. It's suicide. The market walks away, and then you have an ability to finance your project. So we have Gaspe Copper, both brownfield sites at Pine Point in Northwest Territory. Again, brownfield. Pine Point operated up until the mid-'80s. It was operated by Teck Cominco. And Gaspe Copper was operated by Noranda, closed in '99. Both projects still have significant resources, and we expect to be able to take these into feasibility at the end of this year. Gaspe Copper operated for over 40 years. It's a porphyry copper skarn complex in the Gaspé Peninsula. Infrastructure is still in place, electrical substation, roads, and so on. And it still sits beside the village or the town of Murdochville, named after J.Y. Murdoch, who was originally founder of Noranda. So on the left-hand side, you see the flooded pit. It was a small pit at the time. Back in the 80s and 90s, Noranda could not expand the Copper Mountain pit for the simple reason that the smelter had been built on the edge of the pit. So classic mistake of building a smelter or a mill on top of mineralization. The site has since been remediated by Glencore. We have an option this year to acquire the property 100% from Glencore. A payment of $25 million, which will be done through a convertible note, making Glencore a significant partner and shareholder in the Osisko Metals. And we plan on going ahead with the expansion of the Mount Copper pit. Right now, the resource inferred, we had to classify it inferred because it's all historical data from the 1990s, 80s and 90s drilling by Noranda. Sits at about 3.1 billion pounds copper in pit. So about 456 million tons at 0.31. The grade is variable right now. Total copper is 0.35. Right now we have 3.1 in the sulfide model because we're still refining the oxide component to the resource. So we initiated a 30,000 meter drill program, which will be completed by year end, in which case that resource will allow us to classify that resource measured and indicated. And by Q1 2023, we'll move directly to feasibility on this project. Between now and year end, though, we will do a PEA published by the end of the year based on the inferred resource. It's actually a solid resource because it's from over 3,300 historical holes from Noranda, including almost 28,000 analytical composites. So by normal standards, this would already be measured indicated because it's historical. 43-101, of course, does not allow us to go beyond inferred until we do validation drilling. So it's a great project. It's by far the biggest untapped resource, copper resource in Eastern Canada. And as I mentioned, we anticipate being able to move quickly into development and feasibility within the next year. The geology of the area, this is a south cross section across the entire property. It's basically a porphyry copper skarn complex. 2 porphyry systems on the property, Mount Copper, which is on surface. The deeper one, called Porphyry Mountain, was discovered in the 90s. The resource published by Noranda in 98 is for illustrative purposes only. It's not for 30101. It's about 200 million tons of 0.73. But it's a deep-seated porphyry system, completely hidden, sitting at about a kilometer's depth. Cross-section in the Copper Mountain block model right now clearly shows a central core of copper moly surrounded by a lower-grade copper aureole. The central core runs about close to 100 million tons of 0.5. So, a nice thing about the pit model right now is that would be the richer portion would be mined first, which is important in the mine plan. Porphyry Mountain, we do not have a reliable resource models, but these are some of the intersections that have been drilled at Porphyry Mountain. As late as 2011, I draw your attention to the last hole that was drilled into the system, intersecting 822 meters at 0.94 copper and 0.07 moly. So that's quite spectacular for any porphyry system, and we plan on re-drilling Porphyry Mountain in the fall once we've completed the 30,000 meters on the Copper Mountain. So the deal with Glencore, again, have to pull the trigger on June 30th. It's basically a convertible note. And the only other constraint really is spending $55 million in the next 4 years to bring the project to shovel-ready or FID. So it's going to move quickly. By porphyry copper standards, this is a Tier 2 asset, definitely not Tier 1. But frankly, at this stage of my career, I'd rather develop a Tier 2 asset in a jurisdiction that's going to allow me to get a permit in a reasonable time frame than a Tier 1 asset in a jurisdiction that's going to take me 15 years to get a permit. And that's the beauty of having assets in Canada. It's still a great country in which to permit projects. So I'll move, that's Gaspe Copper in a nutshell. I invite you to go to our website to get more details. Pine Point, again, brownfield site. We've been working Pine Point for 4 years. Right now we're sitting at about 50 million tons, 4.3 zinc, 1.5 lead, all shallow open pit. We'll be moving on to feasibility this fall, updating the PEA next month. In the previous PEA 2020, we're sitting about 500 million after-tax NPV and close to 30% after-tax IRR. And that was done at $1.10 zinc. The new PEA will be done at $1.30. As you know, zinc has been fluctuating between $1.60 and $2. Record high prices, actually, which the market completely ignored. But zinc is actually quite lucrative right now, especially if you have decent grade either for underground or open pit. So Pine Point is essentially on budget, on time. We're completing our hydrogeology work, and we will proceed to feasibility shortly. Permitting process will also start later on this year, and IBA negotiations with the 3 local First Nations group. The objective, Pine Point, is to get the FID by late 25. So, again, lots of existing infrastructure, road, rail network to central Canada. Very important when you're considering any base metal project. Without infrastructure, the concentrate goes nowhere. On the previous PEA, we had a 10-year mine plan, which potentially make Pine Point one of the top 10 zinc producers in the world, averaging close to maybe about 300 million pounds of production a year. Beauty of Pine Point is the exceptional quality of the concentrate. If you compare Pine Point to the 5 biggest zinc producers on the planet, it's exceptionally clean, both in trace and major elements. This would be a premium product that would be marketable to just about any smelter on the planet. So considering infrastructure, critical resource, minimum mass, and premium high-grade concentrate, Pine Point is essentially the only zinc development project in North America that fits the bill. And again, we have agreements with all 3 communities, moving on to IBA shortly. So in a nutshell, two great development projects, 7.1 billion pounds of lead zinc in the resource category in pit sitting at Pine Point, 3.1 at Gaspe Copper. That gives us over 10 billion pounds of metal that we can quickly move to development and hopefully production in the next 4 years in Canada. Thank you very much.